Mark Batres.
Hey, how's it going?
Mark Batres, I'm going to go ahead and claim this as your coming out party.
All right. I'll take that.
Like, who is Mark Batres? He just cranked the F out of some 75 miles.
85.
85 miles. Sorry. Oh, my goodness. What am I thinking? 17 times 5. Wait a minute. How many loops?
17. Yeah.
17 times 5 is 85. Did you mix it up? I haven't looked at your loops. Did you mix it up?
Nope. Same loop every time. Yep. The only thing I did differently on some of the loops was like I ran around a soccer field, and on some of the earlier loops I was on the grass, but towards the right in the middle I was like, oh man, these like grass loops, this grass section is like hurting my feet when I come in because it got my feet wet. So I was like, I was getting blisters and I was feeling more uncomfortable from the moisture. So I was like, screw it. I'd rather just run on the street. So that was the only difference. Yeah. But other than that.
Hey, Kristen.
Hey, Kristen.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing all right.
We've never spoken before. That's Mark over there.
How's it going?
Yeah. Hey.
So what part of the world are you in, Kristen?
I'm in Virginia right now.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you this question first and then Mark can answer. How did you first hear of this event and what were your thoughts at the starting line about how you might do?
So I'm in like a couple of Facebook groups, like OCR kind of. I did the first World's Toughest back in, what was it, like 2012. But I had no idea like what I was getting myself into at that point. I was a freshman in college. So then I kind of like, I haven't really done too many since then. Just kind of doing a lot of like Army training and things like that. Getting onto the start line, I honestly, I think the most I did was 100K before 2 days ago. So my goal was 12 loops, but just trying to get as many as I could.
And how about you, Mark?
Yeah, I heard about it on Instagram. When you guys, first posted it up, I was like, oh man, this is not for me. I was like, I'm not doing that. I had recently been like kind of battling some like Achilles tendonitis kind of stuff. So I was like, I'm not really gonna get into anything that's gonna get me hurt. And then actually this week, like the week leading up to the race on Thursday, I had a really good 15-mile run, and I was like, man, I was just, I finished, I think my last 3 miles were like at 5:30, 5:39 to 5:40 or something like that. And I was like, I just cruised that last 15, that 15 miler, and my last 3 miles were pretty good. I was like, I think I can do this. So I was like, I think I'm going to sign up and see what I can do with no expectations. Like I got on the line on Saturday, and I told myself, hey, just go out there and, just see how far I can go. Like I wanted to get 50. That was my goal. Like, let's get 50, but let's get there really, really fast.
So you didn't look at like who else was signing up and like, oh, I see Atkins might do it, or, you didn't look at any of that?
No, actually I did. And that's kind of why I took out so fast, because I knew, like, I know Michael Wardinian, he's awesome, and he's not afraid to go out on his own, like when he did in like the Olympic trials in 2008. So I know he's a tough guy. So I was like, you know what? He's just going to do his own thing. The only way to beat him is actually to be ahead of him. So then he panics and kind of goes off of his own plan. So I was like, I'm going to take out really hard and just hopefully like make him do something he doesn't want to do. And then hopefully that'll work out. And then like with Atkins, I knew it wouldn't affect him because he does his own thing. So I was like, he's not gonna pay attention to what I'm doing. So my best strategy was just to go out hard and just see how far I can take it. So I was like, what?
At what point did you think about winning? After 50 or before 50?
Way after, because at 50, that's when I got to 50. I was so excited. I was like, oh man, I got to 50. I already started celebrating. I drank a full beer and I was like, oh man, having a good time. I think my pit stop after 50 was 25 minutes. So I was in the pit for 25 minutes and I was with my family and I was having a beer and we were joking and having a good time. And then I was like, I really had no intention to going out again. But then I heard someone like on the Zoom, and she was like, it was just some lady, and she was like, oh, you know what? My body's failing now. I don't feel good, but I'm just gonna go walk the next lap. I'm just gonna go walk it, and I'm gonna get more miles in. And I stood there and I thought about it, and I was like, you know what? Like, she's finding out what her limits are today, and I'm like, I'm not. Like, I'm not at my limit yet. And I'm like, you know what? She's right. And I dropped the beer and they're like, whoa, you're going out again? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I came to find out my limits today. And, this lady's going to find out her limits and I want to see where mine are. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to keep going. And then that's when I walked out. I think if we didn't have the Zoom, I don't know if I would have went out again. But because we had this whole thing, this whole community, I was like, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna do it. So it was really special.
That's awesome. Kristen, were you looking at the leaderboard? Did you have crew looking at the leaderboard?
I didn't really have any crew, but I was looking at it myself and kind of keeping tabs a little bit. I was getting pretty worried around like mile 45 because starting to feel it a little bit. But I think definitely coming in every 5 miles and kind of like forcing myself to like refuel and like just try to like stretch out a little bit was kind of helpful. I feel like sometimes, when my body's feeling good, I tend to neglect doing that. So kind of forcing myself to do that along the way was pretty helpful. But yeah, I think for me, like once I got to about 60, my body was pretty bad. So I had to really like dig down and figure out how I was going to get those last miles.
Well, it looks like it was still a battle up until 11 or 12. Like Lauren looks like she was slowing down a good bit, but Beverly and Ashley were still kind of in there. And actually looks like Ashley's laps were still pretty quick. Like she's still putting down like 48, 49 minute laps.
Yeah, I think that's what really pushed me when I kind of started thinking about slowing down my pace. I just was kind of looking at that and trying to push it harder. So.
Did you? But the very first World's Toughest was actually 2011 in New Jersey. Did you do that one or did you do 2012?
Sorry, yeah, 2011.
Oh wow, so that's
December.
That's OG baby. And you don't even look at, so what, you did like one lap and stopped probably, or 2 laps and stopped because everybody was freezing their ass off?
Yeah, I think I did like 3.
Oh, really? Well, you probably did, then you did better than most. I bet I can find you. Hang on a second. 2011, because I have links to all this stuff because I'm a nerd when it comes to stuff.
I think I came off the course at some point because I had like hypothermia, and I remember I didn't have a swimsuit, or like a wetsuit, so I borrowed a like short wetsuit from one of my guy friends that didn't even fit, and it didn't work at all. So.
All right, hang on. I'm gonna see if I can look you up here. Kristen, Kristen, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's see here. This is exciting. Going back 9 years, Kristen Gray. Here you are. Well, it only has you for 1 lap.
I think there was something with the timing chip that was wrong with the results.
Okay, it was 2011, sure. So you get a pass. But you said you haven't done a lot of races since, because I was trying to find you. I was trying to like Google you and like your think your Instagram was private. I couldn't find you.
Yeah, I think I did like one more, just kind of like a tough, a fun Tough Mudder with my sister at some point, but most of my forays have been more like military related and training for that kind of stuff. So a lot of rucking, run rucking, things like that.
Have you done Baton Death March?
I was scheduled to do that, but then I wasn't able to do it. I did one called like the Norwegian Foot March, which was just like an 18.6 mile one this year, and a lot of them weren't like races; they're just like more like training events, things like that.
So if you're barely in the OCR community, then I still don't understand how you like found this and were like, oh, this looks fun.
I've been training pretty hard, so I wanted to get into a race, and I actually just saw. So Mike Wardian lives in Virginia as well, and I just like read about how he just did in the last one, and kind of like motivated me to get out there and see what I could do in a similar style event. So
yeah, I don't know how much I talked about this on the feed, but I've actually interviewed Mike a few times. He's always been great. I've seen him at a few events. Spartan brought him out for a couple trail things, or I've just been at other things. I was at a running conference. Anyway, so he's one of the first people I thought of, and I said, listen, you got to do my race because then you can be the undisputed quarantine king. You won the backyard ultra, and you can win this one. Not knowing, by the way, that I'm going to do another one because we're definitely doing another one. And so I thought for sure, he was the favorite. And I reached out to a lot of ultra people because I was surprised, actually. I thought we'd get some OCR people, but like the fact that it sort of caught fire the way it did. Anyway, so did you know this Chris guy, Mark? This guy, Chris Calandra, whatever his name is?
No, I didn't know who he was. Yeah.
So
the only one that like, I think me and like Logan, we kept coming in at the same time and we kept leaving at the same time. So I was trying to stay with him. And then I heard someone say like, oh yeah, like Logan's in like 8th place. And I'm like, holy hell, like I got a bunch of guys like right behind me. I got to wake up. So that's when I started to like really like clipping off some good times. Yeah,
well, but it was kind of fun though, because like I expected, Trevor to do really well. And I knew you'd do well, but I didn't know you'd win. And then I know a bunch of these other guys, right? Like I know, I know Adam Ribeiro, I know Bubbles, and I figured they'd be up there because like they do a lot of these, they do a lot of Spartan Ultras. So this guy, Chris Calamano, we did a little funsy Zoom yesterday, and he said that he was talking shit to like his friends. He's like, I'm going to crush these OCR guys. Like he thought he was the man. And, he said, he got his ass handed to him because he blew up because he was like 2nd or 3rd all day. And then, boo, which is what's great about an endurance event, right? Like that's what's awesome. It's like, we used to say World's Toughest doesn't even start till midnight, right? Like so many people go out guns blazing, and then so when you were putting down, let's see, so Mark, you put down your slowest lap was a 34 something, right? And then
it was 36. Yeah, it was 36 something. Yeah. After my 25-minute break, I started out and I was not feeling good, and then I came in, and Natalie was like, "Hey, you know what? You just got to keep moving, and you got to stop like trying to extend your stride like if you're going for a 6:30 pace." And I was like, "Okay." So then I started going into like a loping, slow stride, and it was still like 7 flat. So I was like, "I'm okay."
Yeah, because Mark barely made it under the gun, and you still beat him by, what is that, 20 minutes, 40 minutes? I'm bad at math. 9:37 to 10:11. So, half an hour basically.
Yeah, still pretty good. Yeah.
So, have you looked at ultras in the past, or because like obviously you've been Spartan racing the last few years?
Yeah, I mean, I started thinking about ultra stuff actually when I did the pit crew for the when Tough Mudder did like the team championship kind of thing, when they were like, okay, we're gonna have like, you can have 4 people and you can kind of switch off between like your team of 2. I was there with like Brian Kowitsky, Glenn Raz, Woodsy, and who's the last one?
Were you on that team?
I was supposed to be on that team, but I tore my meniscus. So I know Brian Kowitsky. I forgot who the other person was. Oh, it was Chad Tremmel. Yeah. So I was like, I was supposed to be where Brian Kowinski was. That was supposed to be me, but then I had torn my meniscus like before that. So I told the guys, I was like, I can't race like this. Like, this is not going to be good. So they replaced me, but I still went to the event and I actually did their pit crew, and I still showed up, and I just wanted to see it. I wanted to see what was going on. And oh man, it's so infectious, man. Like that whole environment, everything that goes on, it's like, it's so much fun. I was like, I gotta do one of these. Like, these are so exciting, man. So like, I've been itching to do one, but never been able to actually get the training right to participate in one of these things. I just happened to jump into this one, kind of thinking to myself, like, okay, there's a certain level of training I need to do in order to get prepared for one of these events, but not even doing that, and just kind of jumping in saying like, all right, let's just get one of these going and see how it goes, and then I'll figure out the training after. And then doing it, and then having success, and then coaching someone to a third place as well, because I coach Ashley. So
Oh wow.
yeah, so I was like, oh man, we both did well. Like,
dude, MGB Racing in the house.
That's right.
So so when life gets back to normal, do you think you're going to sign up for like 100K or some 50Ks?
Yeah, I'm gonna look into them, because I think right around 8 hours is like my sweet spot, because I was really moving for about 8 hours, and then after that I was like, okay, I'm starting to fade a little bit, but you know, it was still like the wheels were on, but it was getting a little shaky. The wheels hadn't fallen off yet at 12 hours, but it was about to get there. So I think right when I get to about 100 miles, I think that's when the wheels will, like, now everything's going to go to crap. But yeah, so this gave me a lot of confidence. It kind of, it made me realize a lot of stuff about training that I didn't realize before doing this event, and kind of like looking at all, like pretty much like what I read and what I understood about this event, and kind of like flipping it on its head and being like, oh, you really don't need to train the way people like say you should train. So I'm like, oh, it's not that bad.
Well, by that, what do you mean? Like a certain amount of miles per week?
Yeah. Like, you know, when I was training for the marathon, it was like, dude, if you wanted to be competitive, it's like, don't even think about it unless you're doing like 100, 120, 100. Like, I used to train at 130, 140 miles a week. So it was like, you had to put, like, everyone was on this mindset that you had to put in so many miles. Right now I'm training at 80 miles. So for me, this is a huge departure in miles, but what I'm working on now is totally different, and it's far more successful, because I felt way worse before and than I do now. So when I used to finish the marathon, it used to kill me, and I just did 3 in one day, and I'm like, hey, I feel pretty good. So it's kind of a eye-opening experience, really. This whole thing was an eye-opening experience. I didn't think I can go this long. I didn't think I can handle this kind of distance, but I was like, oh wow, training's working perfect. So everything's going good. So I'm definitely very much interested in like other 100-mile and endurance events now. Yeah.
Kristen, what is your training regimen these days?
So I've, like, over the past, I'd say 4 to 5 months, really picked up my mileage a lot. I think so. Like I've watched like the, world championships, like OCR, and I think for me in my head, what I thought my biggest obstacle would be was the running portion, because I've always considered myself like a pretty good runner, but looking at some of those competitors, I kind of realized I really needed to step my game up. I think the obstacles would kind of come for me because I'm pretty like decent at obstacles. But yeah, I think that's kind of, and then I got really into, I did an ultra race and it's just kind of like the bug just hit me and I just started running a ton more. And especially now that I don't really have that much else to do, I've just been like running a whole bunch of mileage. So I think for me, the next step though, that like I think my biggest weakness would be any type of like major elevation, running up mountains and things like that, which I don't really have mountains here too close to train with. So for me, that'd be something that would probably be one of my weaknesses. But
So are you the kind of person that, you know, enjoys, you know, putting stuff down on Strava, going after segments, or are you just like, I just run what I feel like? Like, what's your, like, do you have a weekly mileage like goal, or do you just, how have you been doing it?
I think recently it's been about like in the 80s, but generally it's more like about 70 miles a week. I also throw in a lot of like ruck marching, like ruck running segments. So that kind of really helps with the, if you can go like 20 miles with a ruck on your back, you can run like a hell of a lot further than that. So,
And what kind of weight are we talking about?
um, anything is like as high as 90 pounds and as low as like 35. So
90 pounds is like what percentage of your body weight, dude?
a, a good percent. Yeah.
Do you go
100.
do you go weight vest, or do you go like ruck and just throw shit in there like plates?
So I'll do like weight vest, but that's not too heavy. So if I'm going like rucking, then yeah, I throw like a whole bunch of pretty heavy stuff in there.
What's your ruck of choice? What's your rucksack of choice?
Standard issue Army rucksack. Yeah. I mean, I had a Molly frame, which was the older style, and I actually liked that better, but I broke it because I used it too much. So
That's the old school style with the like they had in Vietnam and shit.
yeah.
Audio listeners, I'm currently making rectangular squares with my. Can you describe it for people, because I'm doing a bad job?
Yeah, it's just I think the way it's just loaded onto the frame is a little bit different. So for me, the way that it kind of sits is a little bit better. So I'll probably at some point invest in getting another one and give my issued one a break. But
Are they guaranteed for life by the United States Army?
something like that.
Kristen, what was your food plan, and did you stick to it?
Yeah, so like
Like
that's
what was
actually
in
one of
your
those.
what was in your garage, or however whatever your home pit was?
I had a bunch of like just trail mix and like nut butters and things like that. I think one of the mistakes I made, like in some of the other longer races that I've done, is just been trying to use gels and things like that, and it's really kind of messed me up. So that's one of the things I think that really helped me. My stomach was actually really good throughout the day, and that's something I've never actually experienced before. So it made a big difference. Um,
How about you, Mark? What did you plan to eat other than those beers you were drinking at the end? What did you plan to eat, and what did you end up eating?
Yeah, I had planned to eat like a lot of just like junk food and a lot of like sweet stuff. And I had donuts and all this stuff all set up for myself. But in the end, what did I go to? I ended up eating a lot of pickles and pickle juice. I ended up having chicken noodle soup halfway, and I had beer and a lot of gels, a lot of gels and protein shakes. So I had 3 protein shakes total, and I had I don't even know how many like goos. I did honey stingers. I did mango and was it I acai berry. Yeah, so I did those 2.
So you're in California, right?
Yeah.
And what was the temperature and humidity during the day?
All right, so the first 3 laps were it was raining, so I had to put on the whole rain gear and everything, and I was just trying to stay warm at that point. And then after the third lap, I was like, okay, now the rain's kind of stopping. So we took off the jackets and all the stuff and just kept going. The weather got better. I think the next 2 laps, it actually got hot. So then I was like, oh, great. Now the sun's coming out. It's going to get really hot. And I think it got up to like 58, 60 degrees. And I saw the sun coming out, and I was like, oh, man, this is going to get really I'm going to have to stop and put on some sunblock really soon. And then it closed up again. And then it got really windy. And I was like, oh, great. Like, now, like, we got perfect temperature, but now it's super windy. And that's pretty much how it stood the whole time. So it's kind of a windy, I would say like about maybe 15-mile-per-hour winds. It wasn't too bad, but I could definitely feel it when I was running into it. My first and second mile were always my slowest.
And what was your loop? What was your loop like again?
I went out about like a mile. I would say like a mile and a half out one direction into the wind, and then I went. So that was. I went east, then I went north, and then I went west, then I went south, then I went east again. So it's just a big rectangle. But
you never thought about like reversing it?
No. I was just so like it just got me so ingrained with the pace and everything. Like every time I wanted to know exactly where I was feeling bad at each lap, so I can say like, oh, okay, like at this lap I felt bad at this point, and then every single time, every single lap, it kept happening sooner and sooner and sooner. I was like, like when I was going off in the first couple laps, it was like, oh man, it didn't really start hurting until mile 4.5, and then it was 4, then it was 3, then it was like mile 2, and I was like, whoa, now it's really starting to hurt already. Like I just barely started this lap, but it gave me more information to kind of like ease my pace and kind of judge my performance as opposed to like just smash it and like, oh, I don't know where I'm going, I'm just gonna keep hammering it out. So I think it worked.
How did you do with that, Kristen, with your loops?
Yeah, so I think for me, wind was also kind of a big factor for a good bit of the middle of the race. And like for me, the way my house is positioned, I kind of ran with the wind for the first like 2.5 miles on more of an open road. And then when I was coming back, I kind of went through a bit more of a covered, not really trail, but just like a smaller road that had more trees and coverage that blocked it a little bit more. So I think running with the wind in the first part it kind of gave me that little boost, and then coming back sucked a little bit, but the kind of coverage helped slightly, I think, versus just having to go on like the open road against the wind completely.
Did you think about changing up your loop at all?
I did. I switched it up for 1 lap in the middle, and I hated it. So I went right back to what I had been doing.
And it was how was the weather, you said?
Yeah, so it was pretty similar. It started out raining for maybe like the first 2 loops, but it wasn't too bad of a rain. It was kind of more of a drizzle, and then it got pretty decent, and then the wind picked up for like 5 hours or so in the middle.
Did either of you have like neighbors or people like noticing you running all day?
Yeah, I mean, when I started out, like, because I was running around like a huge park, so the first couple loops, like some people saw me, and then like I saw another set of people come out, and they saw me, so they would see me for like 2 to 3 loops, and they were like, oh, that's crazy. But then like they would go back to their houses, and then another group of people would be like, oh, 2 or 3 loops, that's crazy. And I'm like, dude, I'm so into it right now, man. I've been here since 5. What are you talking about? Yeah. So, only a few people. And then I actually had a college classmate saw me. So, they messaged me. So, that's cool.
Did your neighbors see you, Kristen?
Yeah, there was this one group in particular that gave me some weird looks. Yeah, because it was kind of like in the beginning, they were like, oh, wow, like, you're out here for a long time. And then, after like the 30th time I went past their house,
They're like, hey. I had a guy who I saw running this. So this guy was in his car and he saw me, and he had like a big old hoopty thing. So I saw it again like 3 miles later down the road, and he was like in shock because like to a regular person, 3 miles is like ungodly. He's like, is that you that I saw over there? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you're the real deal, man. I'm like, well, I mean, it's only 3 miles down the road, dude. Like, but people can't grasp the concept of, when they've never run before, that 3 miles really isn't that far. It's sort of, anyhow. So we're going to do this again. Are either of you interested?
I don't know. This hurt pretty bad. My feet are busted up. I had a lot of fun. I'm definitely gonna be like, I'm definitely gonna check it out again, and I'm gonna be on the Zoom and all that stuff. But I don't know if I'm gonna compete again. I think I got a lot of good information off of this one. So yeah, this is maybe one and done.
Yeah, I think for me, I'd be interested. It would just depend on like when it was scheduled, because I have to kind of fit it in with like training and things like that. I can't break my body off too bad before any kind of big training event I'd have to go to. So
How are they dealing with that in the military anyway?
it really depends on where you're stationed, what your position is, what you're doing. So they're still trying to figure it out, just like everyone else.
So, but are people working? Are people staying in their whatever houses or barracks or whatever? I don't know.
It just depends on your status. So if you're like mission essential, then you're working. If not, then you might not be.
Christian, where are you in Virginia?
I'm pretty close to DC.
Pretty close to DC?
Do you know Carrie Matheson?
Richmond? Is that outside of Richmond? Like right there?
It's close. Lee? Sorry?
You have Fort Lee?
No, not Fort Lee.
Oh, okay. I go there all the time. That's why.
Do you know Carrie Matheson?
The name sounds familiar, but
she's a fictional character on Homeland.
Okay. Well, I guess.
Just seeing if you're a Homeland fan. That's all. No, you don't watch.
I've seen the show, so I guess that's why it sounds familiar.
All right. Have you binge watched anything during this crazy time?
Mostly just a lot of online lectures. Studying computer science right now.
It's like a party in your house, man.
Yeah.
Hey, is Natalie still there? Let's ask Natalie a couple. Or did she take off?
Yeah, she's there.
Hey, Natalie.
Hi.
Get closer to the microphone.
Oh,
You don't have to get cutesy on me.
all right.
Hey, remember when I interviewed you guys in Florida?
Yes.
Doesn't that seem like a year and a half ago?
Yeah, it does. Oh,
Natalie,
yeah.
you did really good.
In Florida.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a thing, like we just love proving Matt Davis wrong. I think the day before you told me like, I don't know, like this girl is, you didn't tell me, this girl's a joke. Oh shit, she did good. And then I recall on the Zoom, you telling Mark that he took out too fast and he was gonna blow up.
Is that what I said?
Did I say that? I think you did.
No, I didn't say that.
No, you were like, I think you said like, I don't know, Mark. I think you're going out a little hot. Like it seems a little fast. Like I'm a little worried you're gonna blow up.
That's
and
what
I'm like, as I was drinking my beer, I was like, nah, I'm fine. Yeah.
So Natalie, when he started going back out, did you start thinking about, okay, I can push this guy to win now that he's like in the hunt? Or when did you start thinking about that as a support person?
I didn't even really tell him anything because it wasn't like that Excel spreadsheet or whatever was kind of, it was difficult to see where everyone was at. So I just kept saying, I don't know what the real deal is here. So I didn't really want to like tell him, that he had a chance to win or that he was in the lead, because I was afraid that maybe somebody wasn't logging their, you know what I mean? So I was kind of like, well, if they're not logging, and if they, let's say they pop in 5 laps later, and then they decide, oh yeah, now I'm going to put in all 5 of my laps. It's like all of a sudden somebody's, you know, way in the lead or something. But once I started to see, like, now we're getting to, like, you know, lap 12, 13. Now we're getting closer to the end where it's starting to weed out the people who are still going and logging times. And I'm starting to see all the times logged for, like, Mike and a couple others who were up there. And I just keep seeing a lot of, like, 36s, 35, 30, or 36, 37, 40s on some of them. And I told Mark, like, you know, at about like 60 miles, I was telling him, like, okay, you're in the lead, I think. And then around 70, we kind of, that's when we were like, oh yeah, you're you know, you've got this in the bag, you just got to keep going. But I was going off of the times I kept seeing, like saying you built yourself a big lead because you did a lot of 32-minute laps, and you haven't gone under 35 on any, or, you know, much over 35 on any of them.
Right.
So I was
I think
really building a lead.
Yeah, and that is actually slightly different. If it's a real looped race where your pits would count, it's slightly different. But in this kind of race, that can really work as long as you don't, like you could take an hour break, but now you're costing yourself lap times, right? But if you put down a bunch of early ones, because I couldn't believe it either. I was like, how is he this far ahead of Wardian? And it's like, well, 5 minutes a lap adds up really quickly. Like, it doesn't take that long.
Yeah.
So if you can hold on, then yeah, that's the way to do it.
I mean, we didn't really, like, have a good plan. So, I mean, we had something together. Obviously, I had a table, and I knew he'd come in and need stuff, so I was ready to, like, give him a massage or change his shoes. I was ready for everything, but we didn't really know, like, how quick the pit stops should be. But I did a lot of calculating yesterday, and I'll just, like, throw the stats out there because it was kind of funny. He spent 2 hours and 8 minutes in the pit, and if you count how early he finished, because he finished with, like, I think it was like 16 minutes to spare on the 12-hour mark. So roughly like 2 hours and 24 minutes is the time that he wasted of 12 hours. So in the 12 hours, you know, I told him, I'm like, well, you could have done another 15 or 16 miles. And if you cut your pit times and you only use, like, what did I say, 30 minutes of pit time or something? It was like, you had like 36
3
minutes.
minutes or 4 minutes.
It was like 36 minutes over 12 hours. If he cut his pit stops to 36 minutes as opposed to 2 hours and 8 minutes, then he could have, well, I mean, you know, that would be, I shouldn't say he could have, I should say that's the world record pace. So, we didn't know. I mean, at 50, he spent 25 minutes in the pit because we were just celebrating and, like, goofing around. But then he decided to go back out, and we were like, oh, shoot, okay. So, you know, and I don't really know how all this works in ultras. We were kind of trying to, like, research it yesterday to see, like, where you fuel and how often you, like, can stop to fuel. And because, I mean, obviously there was a lot of controls yesterday. He did 5-mile loops and got to, like, pick out a table and rest in between. What's it going to be like when you're just on a straightaway for 30 miles, you know?
Right.
Yeah. So there's a lot of logistics when it comes to getting into the ultra, ultra stuff.
Well, thankfully there's, you know, like 10 years now worth of documentary out there. So that movie Unbreakable, they just re-released it. And I had actually paid for it because I don't know if YouTube didn't exist or you just couldn't get stuff. I don't know. When Unbreakable came out in 2012, it's right when I first started running, and it was covering the 2010 Western states. And I just started running and I was like, oh my God, Western states. Well, anyway, and you see what happens with people. And I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but you see, you know, mile 68 and mile 78 can be a world of difference for anybody. Right.
Yeah.
So since then, there's been, you know, ungodly amounts of YouTube coverage out there. I will recommend watching Unbreakable because you wouldn't know it's 10 years ago, like technology wise, it's all kind of the same ish. But then people have made a lot of movies about Western states. You can go back and look, but I think there's stuff you can learn by watching people, you know, come back from down, people coming back from being really down, like the I want to quit to I ended up winning kind of stories that happen, or I want to
Right.
quit too. I ended up on the podium or whatever it is. And then there's the people that just, you know, look phenomenal and then hit a wall, you know, like even a guy named, even like Killian Jornet, like can't hit a wall. Right. So,
Right.
but yeah, this, I would say that this race went better than I thought. Like the first 2 hours, like were really like messed up, but like nobody remembers that. You know what I mean? People remember what a great time they had and that they went further than they ever went. And we're going to make the tech better next time. You know what I mean?
You know, having that whole like raise hand thing was great. You know, raise your hand when you come in. And I mean, you could just come hit raise hand. And I mean, really, if you just wanted to take off, I suppose you could, or you could just wait till the hand goes down, which was quick. You guys nailed it. But
Right.
I mean, the biggest problem with the first like 3 laps or 2 laps was just telling everybody that they could do that. So that would be something that's not going to happen next time, because on the, you know, the Zoom meeting that you have prior to the race, the prep meeting, you can go over where to race.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to email the instructions and you read them, because that was a horrible experience. So we won't be doing that again. It just proved that it like made me actually feel like, imagine how Spartan gets. Imagine the amount of emails Spartan gets, right, on a daily basis, right? Or anybody with thousands and thousands of participants. I mean, I had so many people just, you know, ask me just basic questions that were on the website, all like on here, emails, whatever. And I just wrote back, check the website, because then they would like learn to like go there for information.
You did that to me, but the information wasn't on the website. Like there was nowhere on the website where it said you would use Google Sheets to upload the times. And
yes,
where would you?
Well, it hadn't been updated yet as to where to go. And in the last email, we saw
it just said upload
thing.
your times, and I'm like, upload them on Zoom. Like I'm picturing in my head 400. Hey Matt, I just ran a 36:50, and I'm like, 400 people. Was Matt going to be scrolling through the Zoom and being like, oh, write it down? I'm like, this can't possibly be the case. And then later, Alex Walker told me that it was going to be on Google Sheets. So there you go.
Well, here's the great news about, you know, the community. Like I already had someone who I already know and like and have worked with say, hey, I think I've got a solution for you. And we were talking this morning, and that part's definitely going to be better. And you know, we don't want to eliminate like this part of it, because this is what made it fun, right? But we can certainly make it less confusing and crazy, and we're working on that. Because, you know, you know, I said this once before, maybe twice before, but everyone's doing hey, run 10K and then upload it and we'll send you a medal. And it's like, who gives a shit, right? And then this quarantine ultra was the super cool idea. But number one, it was just literally watching people on mute on treadmills for 3 days, boring. And it's the whole run every hour, so you can't really last that long unless you're, you know, what do you call it? Unless you're a professional, you're not going to last more than a few hours. So I was like, oh, what if we did it this way? And it honestly, like, it just could have gone much worse is all I can say. So like, proof of concept, it works. And, you know, I want to do at least one more. Somebody said, well, maybe you'll get to keep doing them. And I'm like, well, no, because that would mean we're not actually back to racing. Like, I don't want that. I would much rather have a racing industry exist than, you know, do this for the next year. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. But it was great. It was still a really good event. Yeah. It was awesome.
I'm sorry I doubted you.
Sorry I doubted you. Never again. Oh man. It was great though. I think the event you guys put on is you know, in the time frame you guys had and everything, and you know, the product that came out was actually really good. I think a lot of people liked it. I liked it a lot, and nothing but positive. Like you said, like you guys are gonna, you know, smooth out the edges, but for the most part, the product itself is really good. So yeah, great job, man.
I had 2 people text me like, what the fuck is Mark doing? Just seeing his Strava updates, you know, because it like it automatically syncs. So every time he came in and hit his watch split, it updated his Strava. So people were just so confused because they had no idea that he was doing this race. Maybe I think those people aren't on Instagram. So they're just like, what the hell is Mark doing? Like, I just saw that he posted like 5 runs, 5 miles, or, you know, and then another person like, dude, did Mark just do 50 miles on Strava? Like, funny.
Sure, why not?
Like, but I know that, you know, the timing on this, and I know you know this, but the timing on this was perfect. People are like losing it. And I think that there was a group of people who were in the race and who got a lot of satisfaction out of this. That'll carry on for a while. And I think that there's people who were watching from home and kind of keeping up, that got that little excitement again, that little, you know, maybe it gives them the bug again. People have like dropped their training, or they've just been like, you know, and maybe this changes that for some people. I think so. So it's awesome.
I think a lot of people are going to sign up for the next one, you know, and say like, oh man, I missed out on the last one, so I want to get in on this one.
Yeah,
so.
If you're thinking about it out there, you should definitely sign up. I definitely would have done it if I wasn't hurt, but yeah.
So why don't we just, so Mark, why don't we just, if we do it in 6 weeks, will you be healed by then, Natalie? Because then Mark can just crew for you.
6 weeks, maybe.
6 weeks, yeah.
Is that what you said? Yes.
Yeah.
It's possible,
yeah.
I'm going to take this whole week off, so.
All right. Well, Kristen already said she's in, so she wants to, what do you call it? Defend your title.
Defend the title.
I have a question because I didn't look at the splits. Kristen, did you do like a more like sustainable pace and run more and pit less?
Yeah, I think my time in the pit was actually like pretty minimal until like toward the end when I was really struggling a lot. I was just trying to stay like, you know, initially around like 7:30 or so, and then I kind of went up more to about like 8, and then my last one was pretty bad. But yeah.
Still not 25.
Yeah, for me, I was in the pit that much, but I think also like all the other ultras that I've done have been more kind of like the minimal style where they don't really have too many pits along the way. So yeah, for me, I just kind of came in and I was ready to get back out.
Yeah.
Very good.
I think Mark was just, I mean, I think we were a really big help to him, but I mean, I'm pretty sure that we were kind of a distraction. Yeah. But that's probably a good thing too.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, like for me, what I've done, Mark, like I was doing some high mileage. By the way, it's Marathon Monday, everybody. I would be out there pounding the streets of Boston right now. So when I've been doing my long runs, there's the belt line by my house, and I could easily like make my house my pit, but I know what happens every time I walk in the house. Anything, right? Like daddy, or they're screaming, or the wife needs something. So like I drive my car across the street, and my car is my little pit. And I was doing like 5 or 6 mile loops, and I would refuel and go back out. So like, I think you get extra kudos for being able to like deal with that, like deal with going home. Cause like, I know I couldn't, I could never do that I could do it. Like my wife could just crew me, but not with the kids.
Yeah.
Well, they weren't there the whole time.
Yeah.
They were only there from like 11 to 5 or whatever. Yeah.
Did you lock them in the basement for the first few hours?
No, but they had iPads, so they were really like doing their own thing. Yeah.
Right.
They were being babysat by an iPad. Yeah.
They were what? Sorry.
My mom was in the house with them. They weren't like by themselves, but they had iPads, so they really weren't.
Listen, you don't have to explain to me. Like we are an iPad, a television is listen, I just bumped my Netflix up to 2 screens because they can't be on at the same time. And magically, we've never had that problem because there's enough things. There's YouTube, there's Disney Plus. But today, to avoid a fight, I spent an extra $4.99 a month because that's what you got to do, man.
Do whatever you got to do. Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
All right, let's take you guys off record. Hang on.